we'll make use of an API called toSignal. The toSignal API is made available through the interoperability API. It allows us to convert an observable to an Angular signal. As you can see from the code in this slide, the toSignal API can take in a generic type as well as different data types. It can also take in the source, which is the data we're trying to get from the REST API, and then it can take in an initial value as well, which can be of different data types. If you do not pass in any initial value, it's going to set the initial value to undefined by default. This could have some performance implications in some instances. And with that, let's head to Visual Studio Code to work with this API. If you can recall, we have 3 reactive primitives in signals, which are effects, computed, and signal. Out of these 3 primitives, the first one I would like us to work with in converting our observable to a signal is the computed reactive primitive. I would like us to use it in our REST variable. To do that, I'm going to import computed from @Angular core, and then right here, I'm going to call the computed, which is going to be in form of a function. I'm going to make use of a fat arrow, and then I'm going to wrap everything around our environment. As you can see, we now have our first reactive primitive implemented in this file. Next up, we need to create a variable that takes in the data coming from our getProduct method. To do that, I'm going to create an observable variable called products. So I'm going to say private, and then it's going to have a dollar at the end, which is a pattern with observables. Next up, I'm going to call observable and then pass in our interface and set it equals to this dot get product. Now the product holds the response coming from our API right here. So the next thing we need to do is to create our signal. To do that, I'm going to call the signal product signal and then set it equals to signal, which we need to also import from the RxJS interop. But before we import it, let me complete the configuration. So the first value, which is the source, is going to be called this.product, which is also our observable that hosts the data. Then the second value is going to be the initial value. I'm going to say initial value, and then it's going to be set as an empty array by default. We can then proceed to import our toSignal API from the RxJS interop library. So I'm going to say import toSignal from @Angular/core/@RxJS/interop. So we can save everything we've done so far. Now we have a signal available to us in this project. To make use of this product signal, all we need to do is to head straight to our product component. So in the product component, I'm going to get rid of this syntax because in Angular 17, we have a new built-in way of writing a for loop, and that is the @for block. So I'm going to get rid of this ng4, and above I'm going to say @for. I'm going to open a bracket and I'm going to say products of product service dot product signal, which we just created in our service, and we're going to pass in the trap. So I'm going to say trap, and it's going to be products dot underscore ID. With that, Angular will know when any of the items on the list changes. This is going to be wrapped around the bracket, so I'm going to wrap the bracket just after the closing div right here, and we're going to create an @empty block. So I'm just going to say @empty. In case the list is empty, we can just create a div that says no products available. And before we save, it seems we have an error right here which says product service is private and only accessible within the product component. So to access this product service, we need to head straight to our product.cs file, scroll to the top of the page, and then change this private to public. I'm going to save everything we've done so far, ensure we have our server running, head straight to the browser, and then refresh the page. And it seems we have an error. Let me check the console. HTTP failure response for local hosts. I think I know where the error is coming from. When we head straight to the product service file, if you look at the REST API variable, we change this to one of the reactive primitives in signal. And one thing about signals are nothing but a function. So at the end of this REST API, we need to add a parenthesis, and then save once again. So I'm going to head straight to the page. And as you can see, we have all our assets coming from our REST API displaying on the page. So if I head straight to the product.ts file, we can get rid of our observable. And when we save once more and head straight to the page, we still have access to our data. And now, to summarize this lesson, we've been able to learn how to utilize the interoperability API to fetch data from the REST API, write less code while trying to consume this REST API in the component, and then reduce the amount of RxJS observable we need to write in the templates, which helps us to limit a lot of performance drawbacks, and then increase the reactivity of the entire code by relying on signals.
If you want to keep learning about how to build real-world apps with the latest technologies and other career-related topics, then start right now by subscribing to our channel and liking this video.